How's it going today, YouTube? Today we're talking about Boeing stock, ticker symbol BA, and we're going to go through the bull thesis, the bear thesis, and why I added some shares to my portfolio. So I personally bought some. It might not be for you, so we're going to dive through the bear reasons why it might not be for you, and we're going to go into much more stuff than that. So if you enjoy the content, please think about liking and subscribing, and let's dive into the bull and bear thesis here. All right, Boeing bulls, let's get after it. So Boeing, BA. So the market cap is $92 billion. So I like to consider this like, mega cap company, really large market cap. So I like a really big market cap and one that has, a history of growth and revenues and everything like that. So I like that it's a big market cap that makes me feel safe that it can't be manipulated or anything like that. The share price could be a positive or a negative. It was $350 before the Air Max stuff all happened. And now it's down to $150, $160s with everything going on. And it was sub $100 for a little bit, which is crazy to think during the the lowest of the low back there in March. So the price could be considered a good or bad thing. It has earned going down, don't get me wrong, it has bad things going for it, so it has earned going down significantly since that 350 spot. I believe that the US would bail out Boeing stock if another wave of COVID hit. Why do I believe this? Because I believe it's too big to fail. It's one of the biggest airplane makers out there, so it produces so many airplanes, and it has a ton of its revenue from military contracts, from the US government contracts that it has. So I believe this one would not go under. When I do kind of feel this way about Delta, Spirit, or American, because they're a dime a dozen. There's a ton of these airlines like Delta, Spirit, and American, and these guys, fly people, they don't make the planes. But I feel like this is a safer bet than these guys because they could go under, because there's so many of them, and I just feel like them being a plane maker and for the government is a good point to think, oh, they can't let them go under. Vaccine hopes. So this is more of a short-term thought, which I don't really like. I like the long-term play on these things. But vaccine hopes, I feel like we're going to see a short-term pop when a vaccine does eventually come out, which it should eventually, in airlines, cruise lines, gambling stocks, and anything else that's been super-duper affected by the COVID. So I believe, well, actually probably the whole market's going to lift quite a bit on news of that. But anyway, I do believe that we're going to see a good short-term pop in Boeing stock, which I'm not in it for the short term when that happens and we see a vaccine. Airline demand. So airline demand hit its lows in March, and now we're starting to see it slowly uptick. So we're still not even close to where we were before March in the January, February time, but over the course of years, which is how long I'm giving this investment, 1 to 5 years, we should be back up to that point where we have a decent amount of airline demand. Military contracts. Now this makes up a large portion of their revenue. Right now they are very negative because their commercial flights and everything like that have been awful, but a good chunk of their revenue is military contracts. So they're not bringing in nothing during this time of lull. They are bringing in money through the military contracts. And I like that they have contracts in the military because it makes me feel like at least that the US government would save them if another wave of COVID hit. Goldman also has a buy rating, and this one you got to take with a grain of salt because you never know what their holdings are. Maybe they're holding, millions of shares of Boeing or whatever, but they're rating them at a buy as well. So this is a little bit of the bull thesis. Now let's dive into the bear thesis, which is kind of sucky. So whenever I dive into an investment, I need to know both sides of the cards. If there's really good things happening, but then you don't see something that's just absolutely terrible, it's not something I'm going to want to dive into. And don't get me wrong, I didn't buy tons of shares because there is a serious bear thesis here. So don't get me wrong here. So here we got the Boeing bears. So a big thing that could be bad or good, I suppose, is dividend cuts, but that's going to drive the share price down. So dividend cuts, I'm not a big I don't care that they cut the dividend because right now they so badly need the cash to stay afloat. I don't want them giving their cash out to their shareholders. They need it right now to stay afloat because they have a serious cash burn right now. Job cuts. So they're kind of hurting because they're cutting 10% of their 160,000 workforce. And this kind of makes sense. It is to save more cash for them, but their production numbers, they've cut their 737 production numbers. So they're going to need less people to make all of these jets. So that's understandable, and they need to try and save money. Sucky for employees, and I get that, but it is going to try and save them money. The debt they're accruing right now. So they are making so much debt right now. They had to take out debt from the US government, and they've had to take out tons of debt to try and stay afloat, and they're not making as much revenue and money as they would normally make. They've been in the red, and they will continue to be in the red. So the debt they're taking out is basically just changing the company. This is changing Boeing stock as a whole. So I definitely don't think right now it's worth the 350. You know, their revenues are not good. They're taking on more debt. Their balance sheets weren't the same as they were. Their revenues weren't the same as they were before. So they're not a $350 stock as it sits. And the question also needs to be asked, are there going to be people to buy these jets they're making, their 737s? Why I ask this is because all the airlines are hurting, you know. Spirit, I don't know why I started with Spirit, American Airlines, and Delta, they're getting crushed right now. How long do we think they're going to have before they're going to want to start buying up some new fleet? 1 year, that's pretty optimistic. I don't know, 2, more realistically, probably 3-4 years before they start having that amount of revenue and the traffic increases. So there is a very, very serious bear consideration here. And now we'll dive into why I personally am wanting to buy a little bit of this and watch this right now. Why did I personally, myself, and do your own research, why did I buy some Boeing stock? So Boeing buy, why is this right for me? So I believe things will get better eventually, right? And I think that's pretty common thought, like this can't last forever, this lockdown, this COVID, all this stuff we're facing, it can't last forever. So I think things will get better eventually. You know, that being 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm thinking more like things will be better in this industry, maybe up to almost normal, minimum 3 years, I'm almost thinking that it's going to be. I don't believe Boeing will go under even if another COVID wave hits. So I don't believe they're going to go under. They have all these contracts. They're making this revenue from the government, which can almost justify their market cap just alone with the government stuff they have going on. I don't believe they'll go under. I believe they will be saved. So I personally think if another COVID wave hits, it's going to hurt really, really badly. It's not going to be good for the share price. I don't think they're going to go under. They're just too big to fail, like at a T. And the fact that they have all these contracts, the fact they were saved with that first bill, I just don't see them going under. They're buyers, you know, Delta, Spirit, all those guys. I think they could. I don't believe Boeing will. For me, I'm a long with all capital. Long hold. So for me, I think things will get better, you know, eventually. So I'm not seeing this one being better for a year, maybe the next year. Things might just be in limbo for a while. I don't know if I see airline makers buying their planes for the next long time. So I'm a long hold. I'm going to hold this one for 2 to 5 years. And after 5 years, I would think, you know, things will be better. People will be traveling normally. Airlines will have recovered. They're going to be buying more jets. That portion of their revenue should be recovered. We should be seeing this, you know, this 150, you know, get somewhere closer to not 350. Even after 5 years, I don't think they're going to be back up to 350. I'm a little more realistic with my investment than that. But after 5 years, I would think they'd be solidly in the 200 something range. You know, I would think that's where they're going to land once they get back to things. They have changed as a company. You know, if they've taken out more debt, their revenue has been getting crushed. They're losing contracts. They're losing employees. They're losing size and scope. So they have changed for the worse through this COVID pandemic, and I understand that. So I'm also making this a very small portion of my portfolio. Less than 5% is kind of where I'm wanting to sit with Boeing stock. Right now, it's only making up about 2% of my portfolio, just because this one's seeming really risky. I don't know if I'd call it like a speculative play, but there is speculation there. It is having loss of revenue. So I guess I would say I'm putting this one somewhat in speculation land, saying I think things will get better. I don't think there'll be another COVID wave. I think the vaccine will help. So I'm somewhat putting this in speculation land. So for me, I want it to be less than 5%. But I do feel over the course of 2 to 5 years, this could earn me a decent amount of money. But if you're not wanting to hold this one for very long, like years and years, then I guess I wouldn't recommend this one for you, because short term, things could get ugly. So that is why Boeing stock is a buy for me. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. If you liked it, please think about liking and subscribing, and I hope we all made some money.